you have practices and you know dentists. How has Dentist Job Connect helped you? Who has it exposed you to? What have you learned through interviewing some of the dentists through Dentist Job Connect?
Yeah, Dentist Job Connect is a genius idea.
Thanks.
I think, to me, dental nachos is the genius idea. Creating a safe place for dentists to go and have that community is the first step. Otherwise, you're just any other job board, and I have not found any success through other job boards in dentistry. And yet, Dentist Job Connect, I think we had 85 applicants to our
awesome
posting. Yeah, I mean, incredible. And we hired 2 doctors and now a third through that group that really we only wanted 1 hire. And yet the quality was so good that we're like, okay, over the next year, we're going to need 3 total doctors. Let's figure out how to say yes to the best 3 that we've interviewed through this process, just because I don't know that we'll get this quality again. Part of that might be a scarcity mindset. I should have just gone back to the dental nachos well in the future. And yet I've been so impressed by the caliber of young doctors and old. We had one doctor who applied that we hired who had owned a practice for 20 years, sold it and relocated to our area and found us through Dentist Job Connect. We had another doctor who was a new grad with 10 years of hygiene experience coming fresh out of dental school. Awesome mindset and so ready for mentorship. We've been so impressed by what that's led to. And as a result, I think we're probably going to have a nearly perpetual ad with them.
And I love you sharing that. And it's why I do this. This is my why. I've turned my life into helping dentists more than patients. I still own 2 practices. We're just talking about our numbers with Jeff. I still enjoy that. But it's so fulfilling to me because the associate dentist is one of the most important relationships in a dentist's life, not their practice, their life, right, Collin? Because
Right.
there's no other team member that affects your life because you're a licensed dentist. I remember being at a big conference. I'll give him credit. It was the one from Lightwave. And he goes, I was down to 2 days a week as a dentist. He's got multiple. He goes, then one of my associates moved. I'm back up to 4 days, right? I just want to share, if a front desk team member quits, do you go telling Collin? Oh, no, you don't, right? Oh, so this is why I tell dentists in the most inspiring but kindly annoying way when they go, oh, I don't need your service. My brother's cousin's sister is graduating from dental school. I'm like, you're putting all of your eggs into your brother's cousin's sister. What if they're not the best one? What if they don't want you? So just tell me, for our audience for a minute, I like this value. How have you learned, or what have you learned in interviewing dentists, right? If you're just like, hey, because we don't talk to other dentists all the time. You got somebody who's an owner talking to a new grad, that's hard. What are maybe just some interview tips you would give someone meeting an associate for the first time?
I think the first step is to create the kind of associateship that you would have
I
wanted.
love that.
As a result, you'll start to attract the kind of candidates that remind you of yourself or an even better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Those are candidates that are really easy to interview. You start to ask them questions that might have been intriguing to you as an associate before you started this journey. And you get to really challenge them, because when you create a position that's worth having, you'll actually want the best person. You won't want the next person.
I love that. That's and that, just so I can pause you in there, there's too much of that with dentists. They just want the next. Oh, I already have somebody, right? I said, but is this somebody the one who's going to help you grow? Is this someone give you team? So you want the best, not the next. And then in an inspiring way, like, stuff happens with associates. They move, they do other things. Why not have a bench? I've always talked about this. Right. No one understands how hard it is. We don't have benches in our office. When someone goes, oh, the assistant called out who assists the surgical prosthodontist, that ruins a day. There's no bench. But with associate dentists, you can't open up the practice. So I love that you've said this. You want the best, not the next. And in your process, I'm actually curious, who interviews the associates when they come in? You and the office manager? I'm not your ops director. Who's meeting them for the first time?
Yeah, we really try to fully immerse them in our practice experience. So our interview process is kind of rigorous. I mean, especially with Dentist Job Connect, because of the volume of applicants that we got. We ran a round 1, just like send an email and answer these 5 questions that were in addition to what was on our job. If they didn't respond, perfect. That's not the kind of person that we're looking for. I know I would have responded. If I wanted this job, I would have responded to the 5 questions. Then from there, we set up a Zoom interview, because our area was not local to a large amount of the applicants, and
Yeah.
anyone who was local to us, they skipped the Zoom interview, and we just brought them into the office. But the Zoom interview became a second level filter because the final step was that we wanted to invite essentially 3 times the amount of applicants we wanted to hire. We wanted to invite them to actually come to our office. We paid for their travel, had them come to the practice, spend an entire day, because the goal was that they would interview our associates as much as we would interview
That's
them.
great.
We wanted them to fall in love with the position that they were saying yes to, and then to ask them the hard questions so that they've got to make us fall in love with them. And I found that to be a really successful strategy. We have 100% yes rate as a result.
That's
Any
great.
offer the job to, they said yes. That was a big deal to us. And I also think that it helped our team buy in. Our doctors were saying, hey, I'd love to talk to you about Dr. Sam. I really like
Yeah.
that. I think that we should hire her. I'm like, whoa, whoa. I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah.
Tell me more. What did you like about her specifically? What do you think would set her up for success? And then our applicants essentially had an advocate inside the practice. And I really enjoyed that. So to me, that's the answer. Darcy is also a huge cheat code for us, our director of operations. I would say when you say dentists don't have a bench, Darcy introduced me to the idea that you gotta have a bench.
Yeah.
Almost always.
We're like everybody's inconsistent and emotional about spending money, right? But
Right.
like I talk with Ryan Fulke, and maybe I'm gonna talk with you about this. I believe this is a great idea. In my dental practice, we have a roving dental assistant. Okay, we've had it since I started because I realized that I did not want this one weak point. So the roving dental assistant in our world helps with sterilization, helps with filling it, right? But of course, they could come off the bench. So we've had a roving dental assistant. We only have 2 locations, right? I think you should have an actual roving associate dentist. And listen to me for a sec. This is a person that wants to be like you. I was just watching someone on Instagram, Skylar Morton, talking about he wants to replace himself, right?
Yeah.
This is not I don't want to say this is not the entry level associate position. This roving associate would need to be very mentally flexible. They'd follow someone like you around all the time. And I bet you have 12 associate dentists, right, Collin? I'm going to sell this to you idea right now. Do they take 24 weeks of vacation between them? I bet you they do, right? That's just 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So now you have 6 months with no doctor. So this roving associate to be able to the benefit to them is they learn from the Collin, they learn from the Skylar, they learn from the top person. The way they pay for this is they fill in on vacation. And the fill-in vacation person's got to be very mentally flexible, right? Because they're not working in their main office, they're not in operatory 2 all the time. But I believe that this is once someone has 3 or 4 practices and they look at the vacation schedule for 2027,
Yeah.
you could have easily 30 weeks without a dentist.
You're totally right.
So I'm just saying that this is why this bench building and finding the right person is so key. As we wrap up, and we'll have more of these too, but I want to ask you this question to help. I sit at DSI hot seats and I sit with friends. I understand they talk about my practice is my baby. I can't have anybody work with my baby. It's my baby. I said, first of all, this is a little insulting to your actual real children. But anyway, how do you take care of 4 practices only being in one place? So even if you just bring us down to someone can't find the right implant screwdriver to this lab, you're in one place today. Mm-hmm. What has been some of the ways you've been able to handle that as a practice owner?
That's a great question. I do think that one of the cheat codes for us was Darcy. Bringing her on at the same time as beginning this growth curve was incredibly impactful.
Tell me this, I love this. So Darcy's your operations manager, director.
Yep.
What pain did you have? Everyone has pain before they do anything. Tooth. What pain did you have to say we need a Darcy? What was the pain?
I was being ripped in every direction. And it was exactly what you're talking about. When a front office team member isn't available or isn't here on that day, the dentist doesn't step into that gap, but the owner does have to find a way to step into that gap. Yeah. When there's not an assistant or a hygienist has to go home early, that problem has to be solved now. It can't be solved at 5 o'clock. So many of those issues, alongside me being the most productive doctor of the practice at that time, were just ripping me apart. And I found that I couldn't do the dentistry that I wanted to do if I was also going to put out the fires. And then I couldn't put out the fires if I was going to do any dentistry at all. it really, any dentistry was more than what I could do when I was by myself. So I believe in sharing. I think sharing is really helpful. And I mean that as far as sharing alongside other doctors. I love doctors participating in the upside of our practices. We would love as many partners as dentists want to be a part of our group. And
Awesome.
yet, I think we've done a good job too of sharing in the challenges of ownership.
Yeah.
As a result, not
I
everyone.
love this. And what you shared there about the pain was it's because they need you at the exact same minute. Clinical dentistry, inside and outside the operatory challenges, it's the same minute. You see, what people don't understand running a dental practice, you can't put it off till 7 p.m. at night because
Right.
otherwise you would. You can't do it at 7 a.m. It's at 1:32 p.m. on a Tuesday. They need me to check a hygiene patient, insert an implant, and figure out why Dentrix is down, as an example. Or not even figure out, or ask me. And that, I think, so now Darcy has created an extension of, it sounds like, high level problem solving.
Right. And maybe even better than I am. Like
Right. Yeah.
she could do those things better than I could. And she's a systems oriented person, an implementer, an integrator, the kind of person who hears the idea but figures out how to actually make it happen. So as a result, not only does she solve the problems, she also leads to less problems in the future. I was solving the problem, but not figuring out a long-term solution.
Right. Yeah. The Band-Aid, because, but you know, it's honest. Like, we were at the pool the other day and one of the other girls cut her foot, and they put a Band-Aid serve a purpose, right? So it's not like people say don't Band-Aid a problem. We couldn't let the girl's foot bleed, but it's not a long-term solution to challenges. So, Collin, you've shared so much. I just want to ask you, if someone was to want to learn more about your journey or follow one of your practice on Instagram or see your website, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Sure. I'm crazy enough to share my contact.
Oh,
My
awesome.
number is 850-428-0901. That's my personal cell. You can text me anytime. I'm so happy to touch base with anyone. Also, my email address might be the easiest. It's collinmyrickdds@gmail.com. 2 L's and then MYRICK. Yeah, and I'd be happy to share anything that anyone's interested alongside the journey. There's been so many people like yourself, Paul, who've done that for me, and I think from day one I had your cell phone number, and
Yeah.
you've been great at staying in touch. So it means a ton. And I love that I get to see you at all the DSI events, and I wish I was up north a little more often.
Yeah, we'll have to hang out more in person for high fiving, but thanks so much for sharing. We'll do more of these. Stick around for a minute, but that ends our show. Thanks so much, guys.
Paul.